We need to do still units 3 and 4 for this week. Not saying I'm going to finish both of them because I don't want to keep you for any more than an hour on a Saturday morning. We can continue working in additional classes if necessary, but rather just short bits at a time. I'm sure you all have other things that you want to do as well. So let me share my screen. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Thank you. It's the same document that I was using on Thursday evening. I will continue typing my lecture notes as I go along on the same document. And then from time to time, I will edit it and make sure there's no typing errors and smarten it up, tidy it up a little bit, and share it with you as well. My lecture notes, as I mentioned, do not replace the actual study guide. The study guide is on e-learning, and that is what you should be studying. I don't teach line for line from the notes. I just explain the most important concepts. You have to go through the notes, the actual notes. So we've started looking at the law of contracts. We saw that a contract is an agreement between two or more parties entered into with a serious intention of bringing about obligations, rights, and duties. In order for these obligations to arise, in order for these obligations to be enforceable, the contract must be valid. If the contract is not valid, it is not enforceable. It is a nothing. In order for the contract to be valid, it needs to meet 5 requirements: consensus, contractual capacity, performance must be possible, performance must be legal, and if there are required formalities, these have to be met. We also learned the previous lecture that in most instances, contracts do not require formalities. An oral contract, a spoken contract, is just as valid. So what we're going to be doing is looking at all these requirements separately. Starting off then with consensus. What is consensus? It's a word that you might have used. It is often used in the English language as well. In law, it has a similar meaning to the ordinary English meaning. If we've all agreed, we'll say that we've reached the consensus, or the consensus is that we must have class on a Saturday morning. What does consensus, what is the legal explanation for consensus? Consensus is a complete agreement about the same thing. the same understanding. They must literally, for parties to be party to a valid contract, they must be on the same page. They must have a complete agreement about the subject matter. About the subject matter, and the obligations that will be arising from this contract. If Narisha and Celine enter into a contract regarding a cell phone, Celine wants to use Narisha's cell phone for a week, and Narisha says yes. Celine is under the impression, she thinks that Narisha is lending it to her, whereas Narisha thinks that Celine will be paying for it. There is no consensus. They might have the same cell phone in mind, but not the same consequences, not the same obligations. Is there payment involved? Yes or no? So there is no consensus. Consensus, a complete agreement. Now, how do we arrive at consensus? Consensus comes into being through a process of a negotiation. Essentially, there's an offer plus acceptance gives you consensus. So the elements of consensus are offer and acceptance. Now, something you will realize as we go along with our study of law for the semester is because it's law, there are always requirements. Everything in law has requirements. So what are the requirements? For consensus to have been reached? These requirements are important. You need to know these requirements. You need to be able to apply these requirements. Remember your structured application questions. Gave you an example here. Your structured application question. Example I used, indicate whether the contract is valid or not. That's just one example of structured application. There's a lot of variations possible. Indicate whether the parties have reached consensus. Lots of different variations of structured application questions. Indicate whether the parties have reached consensus. In order to be able to answer this, you need to apply the requirements for consensus to the given scenario. So what are our requirements for consensus? The parties must have the serious intention to create legal obligations. And before I go further, start noticing the pattern. It makes the world easier. There's a lot of repetition. What is a contract? A contract is an agreement entered into with a serious intention of bringing about an obligation. So the serious intention to bringing about obligation, requirement for consensus, the serious intention to create legal obligations. So this is not something new, it's not something different, it's a repetition. It's the same thing. The content of these obligations. You've agreed, you understand and agree on the content of these obligations. If one is thinking loan and the other one is thinking rental, the content of the obligation is not the same. There must be a complete agreement about the parties to the contract. If I am under the impression that it is Martha buying my car, but actually it is Celine, there is no consensus. You need to know and agree as to who are the parties to the contract. In some instances, it might not be that important. Somebody is buying my car. I suppose it doesn't really matter whether it's Celine or Martha, as long as I get my money. For other types of contracts, like an employment agreement, for example, if I'm appointing Ruan, then he is the one that I want to be performing the job, not Martha or Narisha or Celine. So agreement about the parties to the contract. The parties must be aware of the potential legal consequences. So those are your requirements for consensus. How do we reach consensus? Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so just excuse my background coughing. We reach consensus by way of offer and acceptance. So let's look at the offer. Once again, for an offer, the offer must be valid. Let's do this. Those requirements that I have set out for consensus can only come into existence if there was a valid offer coupled by a valid acceptance gives us consensus. So obviously, if I'm saying it must be valid, you're going to be thinking already now, because you're smart, what are the requirements? Which requirements have to be met for an offer to be valid? And now you can already think to yourself, my structured application, indicate whether the parties have reached consensus, indicate whether there was a valid offer. Lots of potential variations on structured application. Indicate whether there was a valid offer. To do that, we need to apply the requirements for an offer. The first one, it must be complete and definite. It must contain all the necessary information. It must be capable of some being accepted simply by saying yes, or even not even saying yes, nodding your head or putting your hand out for a handshake or a thumbs up. It must contain all the necessary information so that the person accepting this offer does not have to ask any further questions. Must be made with a serious intention to be legally bound. We've got repetition here. A contract, serious intention of bringing about an obligation, requirements for consensus, serious intention to create legal obligations, offer, serious intention to be legally bound, repetition. It must be intended for the offer. Why am I not spelling? Must be intended for the offeree. Oh, sorry, that's not what I'm meant to do. What a spelling note. Yes, it's only one R, sorry. It must be intended for the offeree. There must be a complete agreement about the parties to the agreement. Must be intended for the offeree. If I offer my car for sale to Martha, Josephine or Celine cannot accept the offer. There is, however, a variation of this, namely in that some instance it can be made to the general public. So the implication of this is, if I place an advertisement in the newspaper saying car for sale, anybody can accept that offer. If I offer, however, I offer it specifically to Celine, Martha cannot accept it. And of course, the offeree must know about it. This is actually just common sense. What am I doing? The offeree must be aware of the offer. You cannot accept an offer if you did not know about this offer. On page 16, I'm not going to do this in great detail. This is something that you might not know. So I'm teaching you something today. An advertisement. What you must understand is that if I have made an offer and it is accepted, I am bound by my own offer. I cannot offer my car to Celine for $300,000. And when she says, yes, I'll buy it, I tell her, no, well, actually, I want 400,000. The offeror is bound to his or her offer. And now the question will arise, what about an advertisement? If Saturday today, they normally come out on Friday, all the different shops advertising their special offers, their deals for the weekend. So What if Super Spa has offered bread for sale at $5 a loaf? And we all know that's about half the price of bread. So they've published an advertisement saying bread for sale, $5 a loaf. And you walk into the shop and there's no bread. Can you insist that they sell you bread at that price? Is the person who placed the advertisement, who advertised, bound to whatever they advertised? The legal consensus in this instance is no, it is not. An advertisement is not an offer. An advertisement is merely an invitation to do business. So when a shopkeeper, how it actually happens in law, you might not be, or you will probably not be aware of that. If you go into a shop to buy something, it is not the shopkeeper that is making the offer. When you walk in and you take the loaf of bread off the shelf and you take it to the cashier to pay, it is not the shop offering to sell you the bread, but it is you offering to buy the bread. And by accepting your money, the shop is accepting your offer. So an advertisement is generally not bounding. There are some exceptions. Have a look at that section in the notes. It's paragraph 3.1.1. So an advertisement is not an offer. Now, still busy with offers. An offer obviously does not last. Nothing lasts forever, including offers. An offer doesn't last forever. If I offer my car for sale to Celine now, and she doesn't accept the offer, and then 6 months later she comes to me and says, okay, I'll buy your car now, I'm accepting your offer. It doesn't work that way. That's common sense. Maybe I want to sell it now. Maybe in 6 months I don't want to be selling it anymore. So offers do fall away. How do offers fall away? There are different manners in which an offer can fall away. Revocation. Revocation, I can revoke my offer, withdraw my offer. You're welcome to use the word withdrawal. If you don't want to use revocation, they mean the same. At any time before an offer has been accepted, I can withdraw the offer. After it has been accepted, it can no longer be revoked. If there is a time limit, I hate this English word, effluxion. It's a horrible word. It means passing. So if I've offered my car to Celine and I tell her, please accept before the end of the month. So please accept, okay, February is over. I tell her, please accept before next week, Friday. Next week, Saturday, if she hasn't accepted yet, then the offer will fall away. It will lapse because the time has passed. If, however, there was no particular time specified, the offer will also lapse, fall away within a reasonable time. So what is a reasonable time? The word reasonable, lawyers like using the word reasonable if they don't have any precise answer. Reasonable time will depend on the type of offer. Obviously, if I'm offering a car for 300,000, the time given to make up your mind and accept will be longer than if I'm offering you a bar of chocolate for $10. So within a reasonable time. The moment it has been rejected, the offer falls away. If you make a counter offer, that is seen as a rejection of the original offer. So I've offered my car for 300,000 and she says, no, I'll pay you 200,000. She has rejected my original offer and made a new offer for 200,000, which I can then either accept or reject or make yet another offer. And then death or legal incapacity. If I've made an offer and I die before you accept it, then the offer will essentially die with me. Now, there are two legal concepts which relate to the falling away of an offer that you need to know about. The first one is an option. And in this regard, the English word option, or the word option within the law of contract, does not have the same meaning as the normal meaning of the term option. We think of an option is you've got two options. You could choose between either red or blue. Option in this context does not mean that. An option is a separate contract to ensure the not the assistance, the existence. So if I offer you my car for 300,000 and you need time to think about it, you can ask me to keep the offer open for an agreed time. So I give you an option until the end of March. So in an option, there's a main offer, the car for 300,000. And then they're coupled with a separate agreement. So there's an additional offer. An additional offer to keep the main offer open for a specified period of time. So if I've offered my car to Celine for 300,000 and I've given her the option to accept by the end of March, I may not withdraw my offer before the end of March. I cannot change the offer. I cannot decide, no, I rather want 350. Even if Martha comes to me and offers me 400,000, I am not allowed to accept that. Until the end of March, Celine has the right, the option to accept or reject up until the agreed time. And I am bound to our separate agreement to keep it open for that specified period of time. An option must be distinguished from a preferential right. A preferential right is also known as a right of first refusal, which explains, in fact, exactly what it is. Celine comes to me and asks me, will I sell her my car? And I'm telling her, and I tell her, well, I'm not thinking of selling it right now. And she asks me, will I give her a preferential right? So there is, in fact, a contract then between me and Celine, not for her to buy the car, but simply for, if I make an offer, I will make it to her first. So I agree to give her a preferential right. A week later, Martha comes and offers me 400,000. Before I can accept Martha's offer, I have to then make an offer to Celine and say, okay, I'm ready to sell now. The price is 400,000. She has the right to then say yes or no. And only if she says no, may I accept Martha's offer. So those are two legal concepts that affect the validity, so to speak, of an offer. You need to be, this is some knowledge items, you need to know these. Don't confuse them, don't mix them up. So we've looked at offer and we've seen what the requirements are for an offer. The elements of consensus is offer and acceptance. We need a valid offer plus a valid acceptance gives us consensus. What are the requirements then? You should realize by now, the moment I say something must be valid, then you're going to ask, but okay, what are the requirements that it has to meet in order to be valid? The acceptance must be unconditional. And unequivocal. So simply, yes. The moment there are conditions attached or you try to change it. I offer the car for 300,000. Your acceptance is yes. If I offer the car for 300 and you say, yes, but only 250,000, that is not an acceptance, it is a counter offer. it must be in response to an offer. If there's no offer, you can't accept that. Must be by the person to whom the offer was made. Um, it must be communicated in the manner prescribed. If I tell you, please accept in writing, please confirm in writing, a simple phone call is not good enough. If I didn't specifically prescribe a manner of acceptance, I don't specify how you must accept, then you can accept in the same manner that the offer was made. So if it was a verbal offer, you could accept verbally. But I can make a verbal offer and say accept in writing. And then you have to accept in writing. A verbal acceptance will not be valid. And then obviously, why do I keep doing this? While the offer still exists, if it has lapsed, you can't accept it anymore. Please take note. I'm just trying to make your life easier for you. Going to do a quick copy and paste here. I've already told you to watch out for repetition. It's the same thing, it's just reinforcing the concepts. If you're looking at the requirements for an offer, it must be complete and definite. Acceptance must be unconditional and unequivocal. It must be intended for the offeree. It must be in response to an offer. It must be by the person to whom the offer was made, in the manner prescribed. Do you see the correspondence, the elements that are repeated, how these things, so these are just the separate random lists that I'm expecting of you to memorize. There are patterns in law. Okay, then paragraph 4.1.1. You will not be assessed on it. You can read it. It's about signatures. You'll find it interesting. What is a signature? What does a signature look like? How binding is your signature? Just read through that. I'll describe that as read only. So if I'm saying I'm not going to assess you on that, I was actually lying. I might, but it will only be by way of a 1 or 2 point knowledge-based question or a multiple choice or something. You will not be assessed in depth. Okay, and then, so now you have consensus. Now we get to the factors influencing consensus. So things that can happen that might have the result that you think there is consensus, but there isn't. Or you think there is consensus and there is consensus, but there is something wrong. Let's go back to what I taught you on Thursday. When we get to voidable voidable contracts. So the contract is valid, but there is something wrong. And it can be set aside. So the first of these factors is mistake. Mistake in law, in the law of contracts, literally means what it does in the English language. It's a misunderstanding, a mistaken perception of the identity, the other party, or the obligations which influences decision to contract. Now, because you're smart, the question is, what is the effect of mistake on a contract? If you've been listening to me, you would be able to answer this very quickly. In order for there to be a contract, there must be consensus. So what is consensus? Consensus is a complete agreement. A complete agreement a complete agreement about the same thing. Let's copy this so that you can see it together, because I need you to figure this out yourself, because if you figured it out yourself, you won't forget it, rather than me just sitting here throwing words at you. Consensus is a complete agreement about the same thing. But now, the moment there isn't an agreement, Celine thinks loan. Martha thinks rental. That is a mistake, which means there's no complete agreement. And if there's no complete agreement, there is no consensus. And the contract is void. As easy, as logical as that. Not all mistakes will render a contract void. Instances where the mistake will bring, or requirements for the mistake to render the contract void, it must be material. So if Martha thinks the car is dark blue, but it's actually black, that's not material. The mistake must be material. It must be reasonable. So anybody could have made this mistake, and excusable. If the mistake is reasonable, excusable, and material, the contract will be void. You get different types of mistakes. That's the bottom of page 19, top of page 20, the types of mistake. Um, you can leave that out. I'm not going to do that. So you could skip that. Just read the last paragraph there, just above misrepresentation, when it explains this bit that I said about material, reasonable, and excusable. The next factor that can influence consensus is misrepresentation. What is misrepresentation? Misrepresentation is an unlawful, untrue statement made by one party to the other, induce them into a contract. So that is where I am telling Celine that my car is in a perfect working order, whereas I actually know that the CV joints need to be replaced. I tell her it's in a perfect working order to induce her, to persuade her to enter into this contract. So what is the effect of misrepresentation on a contract? How does this affect our contract? This brings us to this issue. That I mentioned. So mistake. If there's mistake, the contract is void. What is the effect of misrepresentation? There is consensus. She has agreed to buy the car. There is consensus, but it is based on my misrepresentation. So there's something wrong with the consensus, which means the contract is voidable. What are the legal consequences? What are the effects? It depends on the type of misrepresentation. If it is innocent misrepresentation, other words, I told her the car is in perfect working condition because I really believed it was. I've been keeping up with service records, everything. So it's still a misrepresentation. I still told a lie, but not purposefully. If it is innocent misrepresentation, the contract can be set aside. Innocent party can decide whether to set it aside, cancel it, get her money back, or she can decide to uphold the contract. If the misrepresentation was negligent, so I didn't know I was misrepresenting, but I also didn't follow the proper steps to ensure that whatever I was saying was true and correct. So I'm telling her my car's in a perfect working order. But in the meantime, it hasn't been for a service once since I bought it. That is negligent. Once again, she can either decide to set aside or uphold the contract. Plus, she will have a claim for damages if she can prove that she suffered damages. So if the car died on her when she was in Okahania and she had to get a taxi, a lefa or whatever to get back to Windhoek, she can claim that from me. And then, of course, we get fraudulent misrepresentation. That is where I literally know I am telling a lie. And the remedies for fraudulent misrepresentation is the same. But just remember, you've got to understand this. Can be set aside. If it's set aside, it remains valid. God, please, please, please understand this. Avoidable contract is valid. If it's set aside, then there will be restitution. But if it is not set aside, it remains valid and enforceable. Please understand this. And then the last two factors that can influence consensus. In most textbooks, they are discussed separately. You'll get a race and then you'll get, but they are similar, although not exactly the same, because our introduction to contracts is very much sort of shortened. Commercial Law 1A, they spend an entire semester doing what I'm going to be doing with you in 3 weeks. I have put them together here. If you go, give me a moment. I'm going to quickly just get, rather than typing them out. The two definitions of duress and undue influence, respectively. So duress, an unlawful threat of harm or injury made in order to, which causes the other contracting party to conclude the contract. So misrepresentation, an untrue statement made in order to induce them to enter into a contract. Duress, a threat of harm or injury made in order to induce them to enter into the contract. So this is literally where I am telling Narisha that if she does not agree to buy my car, I will kidnap her mother, I will shoot her mother, I will kill her mother. And she knows I am capable of doing this. So She agrees to buy my car. Now, a lot of people struggle to get their heads around this. Something I often tell my law students, I'm going to be saying this to you on many occasions still. Think with your head, not with your heart. Law is about thinking with your heads, not thinking with your hearts. It's not about feelings. It's not about you feeling, oh, but this isn't fair. I don't understand it because it isn't fair. Think with your heads. Because I'm telling you, I told Josephine, if she doesn't buy my car for $300,000, I will shoot her mother. And I'm asking you, is there a contract? Is it binding? And you're all going to say, no, it isn't. It isn't because you forced her, you threatened her. Think with your heads. She agreed to buy my car. It's the same as I told her it's in a perfect working condition and she agreed to buy it. Now there was a threat of harm. She agreed to buy it. There is consensus. There is consensus. She has agreed. But there we are. Same old, same old. There is consensus. But because it was obtained due to duress, due to this threat, there is something wrong with the consensus. Contract is voidable. So it's valid, it remains valid. Something is wrong, it can be set aside, remains valid, and the injured party will have a claim for damages. Undue influence is similar. Very similar, not quite the same. Undue influence, not a threat of harm or damage, but rather improper, unfair conduct, usually by a person in authority. So undue influence would be me going to Ruan and telling him, Mr. Lisser, buy my car for $500,000 or I will make sure that you never pass law. He agrees to buy my car. There is consensus. But because it was obtained due to my undue influence, it is voidable. Is everybody with me? Do you have any questions? Have you followed? Have you understood? That is Unit 3. I'm not, obviously, because it's 11 o'clock, I'm not going to start with Unit 4, so we are still somewhat behind, but that's okay. We will catch up as the time continues. I'm going slowly at the moment. As the semester continues and you get more used to the work and my manner of teaching, etc., I will start speeding up. But these first units, my dear people, are vitally important. They are vitally important for everything else that you are going to be doing for the rest of the semester. You need to know the difference between valid, void, and voidable. These introductory units, introduction to contracts, vital, vital, vital. So I would much rather slow down and then, if need be, work in some additional classes so that we do stay basically on schedule. We're still a little bit behind. We will catch up in due course, but I don't want to rush these first units. Any questions before I say goodbye? If there are no questions, thank you so much for offering up. Narisha, your hand is up.
I would like to know, is it possible for you to share the Word document with us? So that we can make our own notes as well, based on that document.
As I explained, Narisha, I will share it in due course. I do think the best way for you to study. I'm concerned about students sitting here listening to my lecture without a piece of paper and a pen in their hands, because then you're just sitting here listening to me and your thoughts drift off. So ideally, even if it's an online class, you must make some little notes while I'm teaching. But as I also already said, I will in due course share the Word document with you. I'm not going to be sharing it after every lecture. I will share it after every section of the work. So after a couple of lectures, I will just edit it, make sure there are no typing errors, etc., and then I will share it with you as a further assistance to your studies, by all means. But it does not replace the actual notes. Remember that. It's to help you with the actual notes. Martha? Martha, your hand is up.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I was also wondering, we are taking notes, and was just wondering if you can share the recordings, because we would want to listen over and
Oh,
over.
yes. No, the recordings will still be shared over this weekend. I will share all the recordings on YouTube. I haven't shared Thursdays yet. I've been a little bit busy, so I don't always share them immediately after the lecture. Sometimes there's a bit of a day or so where I get busy, but the recordings I download and I upload them on my YouTube channel. And once I've done that, I will share the link on the WhatsApp group. So the recordings will be there. You can listen to the recordings as often, as many times as you like. Or if there's a class and you can, for whatever personal reasons, not attend the class at the time, the recording will always be there. Okay, any further questions? No further questions. Well, thank you so much. We've managed to contain it within just a little bit longer than an hour. I wouldn't like Saturday classes to be longer than an hour. So go off and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you very much. Bye.
Very nice.